So do you want to transition into that diagram and talk
Sure.
about and if we end up splitting this up at this point, that's cool too. Do we have time to continue
I
this with
do. I don't have
Yeah,
any.
let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Fantastic.
Let's transition into the second part that I so rudely uh sidetracked you on. Um and you're going to be talking more about this stuff at some point too, right?
Yeah, I'm doing a webinar. It's kind of like not just a webinar. It's kind of like it's going to be like a half a day teaching transmission, whatever workshop on
Hmm.
September 15th.
Nice.
And I introduced this just barely in that Cancer Lunation webinar. But this is one of the first things that's coming up because I feel, Gary, like my relationship with astrology is changing.
Hmm.
What I want to put out for people who already know me probably know that I'm not interested in appealing to to everyone.
Yeah.
I am a storyteller through astrology. And when I look at a chart and I look at what's happening, whether it's a natal chart or even by transits, a story emerges in me. That's the shamanic part of me, is to like
Mm.
be the storyteller. And
Yeah.
I like it to be loose enough that people can formulate their own meaning from it. I don't want to tell people this is what's going to happen on this day, so be prepared for anyway. I think that's taking power away from people. And maybe a lot of people would prefer just to not have to do that. I want to be told
Yeah.
what to do, and that's fine too. We all have that somewhere. I know I do. So anyway, this is kind of what's been emerging from this deepening into my own instinctual pan personal relating. Is what's been
Mm.
arising for me is this, how the decans or the decans, deacons, deacons.
Yeah.
I got to
Deacons.
keep wanting to
I
think
like
of
to call
the
them
religious
deacons because
figure.
it sounds like
Deacons.
those cats in the church.
Right, the deacons. That's right. Okay, the deacons. So the broken up into the three sections of 10. And I love, the Chaldean method and I love the triplicity system, and they work for different things. But what's been arising for me, I had no intention of like doing this again. This just kind of came forward,
Mm.
is to work. And I was looking at my chart first, and now I can't help see it in other people's charts this way. It's just naturally, instinctively coming up. Is that the first 10 degrees of a planet or an angle indicates a desire of that planet or angle to become more conscious of places where, on you could say the incoherent part, where we automatically act, where we act as like automatons, which is kind of like what the instinct unconscious is.
Yeah.
It's like where it's just reactivity,
From our animal
based.
self, if you will, like our animal brain or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's based in the sympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
right? Which doesn't have the balance of the
That makes a
parasympathetic.
lot of sense to me, because one of the first times I actually felt fully seen. And this was after many years of being an astrologer. Austin Coppock wrote a book on the decans, and
Mm,
and I at the time I was living in a community where I had to go down the street to the mailbox. And so I went for a walk to the mailbox, and I was so excited about getting this book. I stopped, sat on like a wall or something by the road and opened the book. And I thought I was just going to take a peek. And the first chapter on the first decan of Aries, I was so engrossed because the way he speaks of it as like this, the symbol is an axe, and it's like person chopping out a clearing in the forest, claiming space within this like um grand beingness of nature and claiming this personal space to call their own.
wow.
I felt so, like for the first time in my life, somebody, because people talk about Aries, this, that, the warrior, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. I was like, that's it. And that's where my Mercury and Venus conjunction is.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, wow. I love it already. Like you're definitely speaking to something I'm in touch with that first
Awesome, Gary.
weekend.
Wow, that
Yeah.
feels really good to hear you say that, because
Yeah.
it's literally like it's not where we are. It's we feel ourselves so connected with all life, and yet we also can, again, it's that talk biodiversity.
Mm.
We love the it's like unity consciousness in its diversity, and
Mm.
the beauty of recognizing oneself as a multiplicity.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
including oneself. That's the biodiversity that I'm talking about, which has to originate and has to be rooted in the instinctual pan-personal. So
You
those are
want
the
to talk
first.
more about that word pan-personal?
Yeah, I'd love to, because the word pan in the Greek is a prefix for all, like encompassing everything.
Everything, yeah.
So again, this is all of earthly life, all of our kin, you could say.
Mineral nation, plant nation, animal nation,
Yep. Yep.
everything.
Everything. Even like, all the elements, the primal
Mm.
elements,
Yeah.
all of that too. The devas, the sprites, all of the elementals and all
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yep. Everything.
Fairies,
Yep.
mermaids, unicorns.
A lot of them. Yes, exactly. Yep. You got it. And what I love too is, Pan, the satyr, the word panic and pandemonium comes from Pan. And one
Mm.
of the things that's said about Pan is he created panic because what Pan represents is our instinctual nature that we've become so separated from that we are afraid of it. We're afraid of ourselves. This
Mm.
is one of the things that Eris is illuminating for us too. We're afraid of our own power. We're afraid of
Mm.
our own desire for freedom.
Mm.
Because again, we're so engrossed in simply the human realm of what it means to be a human being and try to fit into a culture that's broken. But
Mm.
unless we find our belonging here first to inform this is just, like a hamster. We're running in this hamster wheel.
Wow.
And so I love that Pan also is here. And one of the things I love too is that I'm sure you know this, both Pan and Mercury come from Arcadia, which is
Yeah.
considered very wild in
Yes.
the Greek. And the fact that they're partile conjunct in that solar eclipse chart with Eris,
How
it's
perfect.
like the three amigos of like instinct
Yeah.
right there, wildness.
Wow.
So,
Wildness, yeah. Yeah, that's a thing that a lot of people I think don't realize because Hermes, Mercury, is a god of liminal places.
yep,
It also has rulership over wild animals, and so
yes,
this wildness or this really even this feral space, like people who live between in those liminal places, like wanderers, like peregrinos, um, they live in this mercurial place and it because it's liminal, it's not here or there, it's actually pan, it's able
yes,
to be both places at once in a sense and to
yes,
encompass everything
exactly.
because of not being here or there.
Beautiful. I love that. And bringing in Pan again in the Arcadian version of the Demeter myth, it was Pan who cajoled Ceres. He, not taking herself too serious. She reached the end of basically human suffering. She became human for a time.
Hmm.
And she, it's like,
Mourning her daughter.
yes, mourning
Yeah.
her. Well, and for me, it's the mourning of the loss of a naivete
Yes.
of like that things can have to always stay the same, that there's no, we need to be pushed as human beings. So much comes online when we get out of our comfort zone. We
Mhm.
really, it's like, again, in my octopus
Backs
teacher,
against the wall, right? That
it's
that
like he talks,
evolutionary bottleneck.
yeah. In my octopus teacher, Craig Foster talks about even before he goes into the relationship with the octopus, which in and of itself is fantastic. He talks about going into the cold ocean
Mm.
of the South African Atlantic over and over and over again, and what it did to awaken endorphins and
Mm.
receptors in his brain. It literally awakens part of our physiology that helps us, that unites our triune brain, you could say. Our
Mm.
unites our whole, and that's Mars. That's Aries is the full complement of the
Mhm.
brain. We're one unit, one singular unit. And that's what pushing ourselves into like outside of our comfort zone, that's where our gifts lie. That's
Mm.
the hero's journey. Fuck.
Yeah.
In this the day and age, the hero's journey is simply taking another road to work, you know? I mean, honestly, that's how complacent we've gotten. I'm being a little, silly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Virgo enough to like and like I can go on a journey like even in this little field if you get down on your knees in hands and knees and like travel through a field of grass, like there really is like what do you call it? Like to see eternity in a blade of grass or
Yeah.
whatever. Like there really is that possibility. But yeah, taking a different road to work, like if you do it right, yeah, that could be the hero's journey. But no,
Uh,
probably.
no, what I mean in terms of like how little we want to get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But that's where becoming more alive actually lives. And
Hmm.
so we don't have to go swimming in the the cold Atlantic Ocean, but whatever it is for us to do, however we can become ignited again.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the really
Yes.
stark contrasts, I spend a lot of time by myself here on my farm,
Mhm.
and so being in a group experience for like 30, 40 days, like constantly surrounded by people,
That can
that
be
was
hard.
really pushing me out of my comfort zone. So it was
Yeah.
kind of the opposite of like the hero's journey in a way of like really forcing myself to be part of a social unit and to
Mhm.
accept that and to accept the limitations of that and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. So it's going to be different for each person. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
So then we have the second decan, which is the 11 through 20, which is this is the strictly human in terms of like a corporeal human, right?
Mm.
Like the beginning of like it's kind of like mildly akin to like cancer, like in that kind of area.
The
It's
human
like,
experience.
yeah, it's a very human experience of developing a unique self,
Hmm.
developing an identity ultimately that's sourced from both of these, but it's always in relationship. This is a lemniscate, right? They're in relationship. There's an alchemy happening.
Mm.
This is the lemniscate of the magician, right? Mercury, Hermes.
Yeah.
So there's a constant dialogue happening. The self is always being informed by one's greater mother, you could say, father, and
Mm.
the social milieu, the human social milieu that we live in.
Mm.
So how do we become a self rooted in what I know is mine to do and is malleable enough to receive feedback?
Mm.
That engagement of a personal self that also has enough vulnerability and humility to
Mm.
be always in dialogue, as David White calls, like having a conversation. He uses the
Mm.
word conversation a lot, being part of the conversation with
Mm.
life. It's a
Yeah.
dialogue. That's also very mercurial, right? And that's what I love about
Yeah.
the path of vulnerability. Ask for the visible and invisible help. So that's the second decan. And then we have the third, the 21 to the 30 degrees or 29, which is the social and transpersonal, which is culture.
Yeah.
Building a culture that is beyond simply our needs, but includes us, where we're not excluding ourselves, where we find joy in our work. We find joy in giving of myself, but I'm replenished in my great mother. I'm sourced from the greater world, the greater resources of the earth. So I'm not
Mm.
depleting myself. I'm a generative. That's why I have the sun in the back. That's the symbol of the individuated human, right?
Mm.
Is the one who is central to one's own truth and path and equally in relationship to as much life and psychic biodiversity as possible at any one time. And it's always an ongoing process. That's why, oh, I don't have it down here. Bummer. But I just want to bring something up really quickly here about where I wrote in the product page I designed, I wrote the three natures here: the instinct and pan-personal, the self and personal, and the social and transpersonal. These are the natures that comprise a full human being.
Wow.
The individuating self, I didn't say individuated because it's never complete. The individuating self is in dynamic, integrated, and integrating relationship with all three simultaneously. That, to me, is the true gift and purpose, you could say, of a human life. Each of us doing our own part in this. And we can
Wow.
have mentors and people that support us, but how can we bring it back to what is mine to do and not just copy and paste what other people are doing? And that's
Mm.
what we've been doing for so long. because we're just relying on this. And this is where we isolate.
Mm,
If we rely on any one of these things without the relationship of all of them,
hmm
we're isolating somehow, or we're diffusing
mm,
ourselves, which is another form of isolating. We're giving too much of ourselves. We're overwhelming.
yeah.
There's no I in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot, you know. As I said, you know, I'm very familiar with, um, my instinctive self, and like I identify as a feral being like for a very long time. And then, you know, I developed a unique personality as an astrologer, and I began to have community experiences. But to to figure out, like, especially when there's a lot of pressure coming from the collective, for the individual to behave a certain way, you know, and to try and to not get pulled into, like you said, those dichotomies of like, no, 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 it's the individual, that's absolutely paramount over the collective, or no, 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 it's the collective has to be paramount over the individual, and to really figure out like what is the proper alchemy
Yeah.
for this situation, that situation, for me right now. um yeah, I've been thinking about this for a long time, so it's really interesting that you bring this up, because it's like, how much social and transpersonal can I really do, and as a healthy amount for me right now in my life, you know? And like being able to say no and to push that out a little bit if I need more room. And then to realize, hey, wow, you've been pushing that out for a while now, and maybe you need to relax and like go sleep in an albergue with 30 people in a room snoring.
Right, right, exactly. Yep, yep, exactly.
It's a lot like what you're describing. I love it. And I think I love everything you said. And I agree 1,000%. But like just to own that, like actually doing that and finding that alchemy and finding that dynamic balance at any given time,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
It is a lot because we are in the habit of making things overly complex, I would say, Gary.
Mm,
But
yeah.
I agree with you. I don't want to dismiss that is true. And so it's not necessarily for everybody. It's for those who really have a deep calling to who long for more of themselves, to
Mm,
really, really want to know their own sense of belonging, where they
wow.
belong.
Yeah. The
There's
other thing,
Mhm.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, it's just, when we belong to something more than just our human companions, our human kin,
Yeah.
then relating with our human kin, we have more empathy, we have more capacity and availability because we're rooted in something so much greater.
Mm,
And it builds upon itself. And then everything is back, in the Mayan cultures and a lot of indigenous cultures, everything goes back to giving thanks to Mother Nature, giving thanks to the earth for the blessings, becoming an individual in the society, knowing my personal place, like differentiated place, the differentiated unity.
mm,
That's what the self is. That's the capital S self, which is
yeah.
all three of these in relationship
Yeah.
somehow. And, it's an ongoing thing. And, some people this might not be interesting at all. And that's the thing that I'm risking, to be honest with you, to be
Yeah.
transparent. I'm risking I might lose a lot of people who don't want this, don't want what I'm going to be offering with astrology and
I
offering
think
more.
I think you might find that it's even the opposite. There might be a lot more people hungry for this than you think.
Well, maybe I can only
Yeah,
do
I
what's mine
feel
to do.
like there's a growing hunger for something more, something beyond. Like people realize like whatever we have right now, it's not fucking working. And we need to try some different things, and we need to be open to different things, and we need to be open to going back to the fucking beginning and starting over
Yeah.
if necessary, you know? Um, and one of the things that I love about this is like I did a podcast with Krista DeMaio of Practical Astros earlier this year. She's a student of Kelly Lee Phipps, my old buddy. Um, and we were talking about the three decans of Aries. And when you were talking about the three decans, like I can see like the Two of Wands, the Three of Wands, and the Four of Wands are the cards that go with the three decans of Aries. So in the Two of Wands, you've got this guy standing there with a globe in his hand, and it's like literally this relationship of me with all of life, like pan personal, right? Like my relationship with the minerals and the plants and the animals, with the glow, with Earth. And then in the Three of Wands, this dude he's made a choice. Okay, I'm going to send all my ships out for this particular mission. I'm going to focus, like, this is who I am. This is what I'm here for, right? And then in the Four of Wands, there's like this gateway where there's this couple and there's this celebration of like this social communal celebration. So I can really see what you're talking about right there in the pictures of the cards themselves. And so I think you're hitting on something really profound, actually.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's good
I
to
love it. I'm looking forward to more, please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hermetic homie. Yeah.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah. And so yeah, I invite people to check out that event, both events that you're doing. You're one of my favorite people.
Mm.
And it's interesting. Recently, I had another lady author, hermetic author, on the podcast, Marlena Seven Brimner.
Oh, yeah.
And while I was away, one of my students contacted her about working with her, and she wrote me saying, I just want to make sure it's okay that I'm working with your people and I'm not stepping on toes. I'm like, dude, that's totally the idea. Like, of course, like I want them to be able to pull from multiple sources of wisdom and teachings, and so yeah, I'm really happy to be inviting people to jump into your pool of connection and teachings, and to receive the wisdom that's there. I mean, you're doing a lot of stuff, and I'm really hopeful that you and I can continue collaborating.
I love
We both have connections in Africa these days, and
it.
a little bird told me that, something might be happening there. We'll see. I don't know.
Yep, yep, yep.
So,
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, it's kind of like this lemniscate. There's Andrea and there's Gary, and then there's, so we're meeting someplace along
We
the way.
are. Love it. It's so juicy. It's so good, Gary. And what do you have coming up now? Are you still, what's
Yeah, I'm doing an event this Saturday, assuming we publish this before Saturday,
two?
with NCGR San Francisco, where I'm talking about the Mercury cycle. I'm actually, for the first time, talking about this new work that I'm beginning to generate with the Mercury phases
Oh,
that
excellent.
I haven't really formally presented on that yet.
Yay.
Um, but a lot of that is talking about what we were speaking of earlier, about going back to the sky as the primary frame of reference. The first 2000 years of astrology was based on the horizon as the primary frame of reference. And so that's what the Mercury phases bring us back to, is this: where is Mercury vis-a-vis the horizon? Like, yes, it's in this sign or this house, and that gives us a lot of really good information. But what does the horizontal relationship give us, and how does that add to the picture? Um, so I'm doing that. And then next month in September, I'm going to be part of the Astromagia conference again this year. Last year was great, and I'm really honored and excited to be part of that again this year. That it's like it's the first and only conference specifically dedicated to astral magic.
That's great.
It's an online conference. There's a link for that on my website, but astromagia.com. And I'm going to be talking about this idea of alchemy as one of the three hermetic arts. So we have astrology and we have magic, and like there's a new understanding of bringing those two things together that's happening in the astrology community. But what about alchemy?
Mm.
Like, how can we bring alchemy back into the conversation between astrology and magic, so that we have these three parts that make a whole? So that's the talk I'm going to be giving on that in September. And I think that's it for me for events for this year, which is fine because I need to kind of I need to get some writing done at some point. So it's nice to have some events in summer and be on Camino and that say again what that experience of unity with nature. What was that
Oh,
he called it?
pan conscious or oh no, oh, you mean wilderness rapture?
Wilderness rapture. Oh my God, it was so incredible to have some summer wilderness rapture.
Yeah, oh gosh.
Um, but yeah, after that, I'll probably be going back into my hermit's cave and doing some writing and stuff.
Perfect. Is this going to be part of your second book on Mercury?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's the deal. I need to complete the second book. It's been too long, and I need to get my words on the paper already.
Nice.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So great to be back with you again. I had such an amazing time at Sky Astrology Conference, and the people that you brought were so like really wholesome community members. You know, they were really, I just felt like that was a statement about you. The people that you brought was, you know, their presence was really beautiful for me. And I think that says as much about you as it does about them.
Oh,
Um, so thank you. It's really wonderful to be here with you again. And I'm
likewise.
looking forward to what this interaction brings forward in the future and people stay tuned because like I said, birds are talking and see
Birds
where it
are
leads us.
talking. That's right. That's right. I love it. Thank you, Gary. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to sit with you and to receive your magic and your commitment
Likewise.
and devotion. Yay.
Likewise.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Bye for now.
Bye, folks.